I show you how to build the stone wall behind me, today on Dungeon Craft. Welcome to Dungeon Craft. I'm Professor Dungeon Master, and this channel is about playing the ultimate game of D&D, but today I'm showing you how I built this stone wall. Recently I decided to turn a spare bedroom into the new Dungeon Craft studio. The first thing we did was hire a scenic artist to paint the great looking dungeon wall you see here. We carpeted the room and added sound panels, but after listening to my test footage, I realized acoustics in the new room were not as good as my original attic space. This space also has the advantage of having great natural light, and I realized if I just set up my tripod here permanently, I could save valuable office floor space. But in order to keep up with my taping schedule, I had to make this wall in just 4 days. So I turned to the material with which I am most familiar, pink XPS insulation. I made this wall backdrop from 2 sheets of this 4x8 1/2-inch thick XPS. It's easy to find. You can find it at the big box hardware stores, and I carved the thing without any special tools. Just this standard utility knife, craft paint, and Gorilla Glue is all you need. I had no idea what I was doing or if it would even work, but I think it turned out pretty good. So here's how I did it. So I measured out the space. It was 4x5, so I cut 2 4x5 squares out of my 2 XPS sheets, and I removed the backing. I used these paver stones as models so I could get the size right. Each level is about 6 inches high, and I drew in the mortar lines. I used those lines as a guide, but deviated slightly. This is my attempt at German expressionism. If you don't know what that is, it was an art style in Germany in the 1920s with wacky angles and wavy lines, and it influenced everything from Bride of Frankenstein to Tim Burton. If you look at the mortar lines on these sets, you'll see they're not straight. I thought if you're going to stare at a wall every episode, it'd be more interesting if everything weren't symmetrical. My first idea was to carve out the mortar line with a Dremel tool, and that was my first big mistake. It was too jumpy and the mortar lines didn't look good. So I just carved out each block individually with a utility knife. I had a few pieces of 1-inch thick XPS laying around, so I added a few thicker blocks so the surface wouldn't look even. There would be blocks of different size and thickness. Then I made my second mistake, trying to glue them down with white glue. Don't do this. This doesn't work because glue needs air to cure. When I got up in the morning and I pulled off a block, I found the glue was still completely wet. So I had to remove several rows of blocks, wipe off the glue with a paper towel, and re-glue them with Gorilla Glue. So this mistake took me a long time. And now it is dark and cold. I'll just show you. It's dark, cold, and rainy. And I'm in my miserable garage. Gorilla Glue is the perfect adhesive for this work. I applied it with a disposable brush on one side and sprayed the other side with water. When placed together, this causes a chemical reaction, and it causes it to foam and swell and dries hard, not unlike the spray foam insulation. I then began the painstaking process of carving the edges off. This gave the blocks the beveled appearance of tumbled stone. To achieve this look, cut at a 45-degree angle. Around 10 a.m., my friend Adhesive Tom joined me. Here's Adhesive Tom, adding the texture and the detailed work to this nightmare.
Looks great.
But it is starting to look really good. And it took a really long time to finish this step. The same effect could have been done in minutes with a Pro Styrofoam cutting tool, but they are about $150 and they take a few weeks to ship, so we were forced to do it all by hand with utility knives. We used medium grit sandpaper to give the surface some texture, and we primed it with Mod Podge and black craft paint, and it dried pretty quickly, in about an hour. Then we stippled the surface with a sea sponge and tan craft paint. We gradually built up layers, adding gray, honey brown, and golden brown. Then we took some Craft Smart Tan and added some white for highlighting. We added these highlights to the top edges of the stones, and that really made them pop. Our little dungeon needs a little more titanium white. I mixed up a giant bottle of black wash, creating it with black ink and acrylic medium. I added a few squirts of burnt umber ink and a drop of dish soap to help it flow. And if you don't have ink, you can always use standard craft paint, but again, use that dish soap to help it flow. And what you want is about 1 part craft paint to 8 parts water, so it's got the consistency of skim milk. The bottle was Tom's brilliant idea. It helped me control the wash and prevented a big mess. Now you, the audience, may think like Adhesive Tom, wait, this is way too dark. Believe me, in the end it will look good.
That does look right. That does look good.
I want it to dry like this so that there's going to be streaks like this?
It'll look like it leaves water stains and grime stains.
Perfect.
You want it like that.
All right.
The next day we hit it with clear satin spray polyurethane for an extra layer of protection. We mounted it with Velcro strips and put in a few screws for good measure. And here it is in its new home. It really looks Hollywood, man. I can't believe we made that. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. One suggestion, if you're going to do a space that's larger than this, like you want to do a whole wall or a whole room or whatever, or you're doing it for the stage, I would suggest investing $150 in the Pro Carving tool. It will save you hours and hours of time, and I'll include a link to one of those below. Now, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. If you're interested in D&D, please subscribe. You'll find links to our Facebook group and Patreon below if you want to get more involved in Dungeon Craft. And if you're a D&D fan, check out my module Macbeth, an adaptation of the Shakespeare classic in conjunction with the Quest Givers, so go to questgivers.com, link below. Once again, this is Professor Dungeon Master for Dungeon Craft. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you soon, and until then, may all your rolls be 20s.